Chapter 6, Dhyana Yoga. The Supreme Personality of Godhead said, "One who is unattached to the fruits of his work and who works as obligated is in the renounced order of life and is the true mystic, who lights no fire and performs no duty." What is called renunciation should know to be the same as yoga, or linking oneself to the Supreme, O son of Pandu. For one can never become a yogi unless he renounces the desire for sense gratification. For one who is a neophyte in the eightfold yoga system, work is said to be the means, and for one who is already elevated in yoga, cessation of all material activities is said to be the means. A person who is elevated in yoga, when having renounced all material desires, he neither acts for sense gratification nor engages in fruitive activities. One must deliver himself with the help of his mind, and not degrade himself. The mind is the friend of the conditioned soul, and the enemy as well. For him who has conquered the mind is the best of friends. But for one who has failed to do so, his mind will remain the greatest enemy. For one who has conquered the mind, the super soul is already reached, for his attained tranquility. To such man, happiness and distress, heat and cold, honor and dishonor are all the same. A person is said to be established in self-realization and is called a yogi or mystic when he is fully satisfied by virtue of acquired knowledge and realization. Such a person is situated in transcendence and is self-controlled. He sees everything, whether to be pebbles, stones, or gold, as the same. A person is considered still further advanced when he regards honest well-wishers, affectionate benefactors, the neutral mediators, the envious friends and the enemies, the pious and the sinners, with all an equal mind. A transcendentalist should always engage his body, mind, and self-relationship with the Supreme. He should live alone in a secluded place and should always carefully control his mind. He should be free from desires and feelings of possessiveness. To practice yoga, one should go to a secluded place and should lay kusha grass on the ground and then cover it with deerskin and a soft cloth. The seat should be neither too high nor too low and should be situated in a sacred place. The yogi should sit on it very firmly and practice yoga to purify the heart by controlling his mind, senses, and activities, and fixing the mind on one point. One should hold his body, neck, and head erect in a straight line and should stare steadily at the tip of the nose. Thus, with an unagitated, subdued mind, devoid of fear, completely free from sex life, one should meditate upon me with the heart and make me the ultimate goal of life. Thus practicing constant control of the body, mind, and activities, the mystic transcendentalist, his mind regulated, attains the kingdom of God by cessation of material existence. There is no possibility of one becoming yogi or Arjuna if one eats too much or too little, sleeps too much or does not sleep enough. He who is regulated in his habits of eating, sleeping, recreation, and work can mitigate all material pains by practicing the yoga system. When the yogi, by practice of yoga, disciplines his mental activities and situated in transcendence, devoid of material desires, he is said to be well established in yoga. As a lamp in a windless place does not waver, so transcendentalist, whose mind is controlled, remains always steady in his meditation of this transcendental self. In the stage of perfection called trance or samadhi, one's mind is completely restrained from material mental activities by practice of yoga. The perfection is characterized by one's ability to see the self by pure mind and relish and rejoice in the self. In that joyous state, one is situated in boundless transcendental happiness, realized through transcendental senses. Thus established, one never departs from the truth, and upon gaining this, he thinks that there is no greater gain. Being situated in such a position, one is never shaken, even in the midst of great difficulty. This is actual freedom, from all miseries arising from the material contact. One should engage oneself in the practice of yoga with determination and faith and not be deviated from the path. One should abandon without expectation all material desires born of mental speculation and thus control all the senses on all sides of the mind. Gradually, by step, one should become situated in trance by means of intelligence sustained by full conviction. And thus the mind should be fixed on the self alone and should think of nothing else. From wherever the mind wanders due to its flickering and unsteady nature, one must certainly withdraw it and bring it back under control of the self. The yogi whose mind is fixed on me verily attains the highest perfection of transcendental happiness. He is beyond the mode of passion. He realizes its qualitative identity with the Supreme, and thus is freed from all reactions to the past deeds. Thus, he self-controlled yogi, constantly engaged in yoga practice, becomes free from material contamination and achieves the highest stage of perfect happiness and transcendental loving service to the Lord. A true yogi observes me in all beings and also sees every being in me. Indeed, the self-realized person sees me, the same Supreme Lord, everywhere. For one who sees me everywhere and sees everything in me, I am never lost, nor is he ever lost to me. Such a yogi who engages in worshipful service of the Super Soul, knowing that I and the Super Soul are one, remains always in me in all circumstances. He is a perfect yogi who, by comparison to his own self, sees the true equality of all beings in both their happiness and their distress. O Arjuna. Arjuna said, O Madhusudan, the system of yoga which you have summarized appears impractical and endurable for me, for the mind is restless and unsteady. The mind is restless, turbulent, obstinate, and very strong. O Krishna, and to subdue it, I think it is more difficult than controlling the wind. Lord Krishna said, O mighty armed son of Kunti, it is undoubtedly very difficult to curb the restless mind, but it is possible with suitable practice and detachment. For one whose mind is unbridled, self-realization is difficult work. But he whose mind is controlled, who strives by appropriate means, is reassured of success. That is my opinion. Arjuna said, O Krishna, what is the destination of unsuccessful transcendentalist? Who in the beginning takes to process of self-realization with faith, but who later desists due to worldly mindedness, and thus does not attain perfection and mysticism. Almighty armed Krishna, does not such a man who is bewildered from the path of transcendence fall away from both spiritual and material success and perish like a riven cloud with no possession in any fair? And that is my doubt. O Krishna, I ask you to dispel it completely, but for you no one is found who can destroy this doubt. The Supreme Personality of Godhead said, O son of Pritha, a transcendentalist who engaged in auspicious activity does not meet with destruction either in this world or in the spiritual world. One who does good, my friend, is never overcome by evil. The unsuccessful yogi, after many years of enjoyment on the planet of the pious entities, is born into a family of righteous people or into a family of rich aristocracy. Or, if unsuccessful after long practice of yoga, he takes birth in a family of transcendentalists who are surely great in wisdom. Certainly such a birth is rare in this world. On taking such a birth, he revives the divine consciousness of his previous life, and he again tries to make further progress in order to achieve complete success, O son of Kuru. By virtue of this divine consciousness of his previous life, he automatically becomes attracted to the yogic principles even without seeking them. Such an inquisitive transcendentalist stands always above the ritualistic principles of the scriptures. And when the yogi engages himself with sincere endeavor in making further progress, being washed of all contaminations, then ultimately achieving perfection after many, many births of practice, he attains the supreme goal. A yogi is greater than ascetic, greater than empiricist, and greater than a fruitive worker. Therefore, O Arjuna, in all circumstances be a yogi. And of all yogi, the one who is great faith, who always abides in me, and thinks of me within himself, and renders transcendental loving service to me, he is the most intimately united with me in yoga. It is the highest of all. That is my opinion.